Hey guys, thanks for clicking on the video. Just a little bit about what this whole thing is before we get started. I just decided a little while ago that I'd like to try to ask some interesting people some interesting questions, and this first episode will be with a good friend of mine, Taymon Kenton-Smith, who's going for the Paralympic Games with archery. So, hope you guys enjoy.
So, for those who don't know you, give me the brief introduction as to who you are and where you are going.
Okay, so basically, long story short about me, I have one hand. I am a one-handed archer. Basically, the guts of my story is when I was 14, I promised my nana that she would see me go into international lights, she would see me put on the green and gold jersey, and that she would see me get to the Paralympic Games. I've pretty much completed 2 of 3 of those promises, and now it's basically a goal to get to the 2020-21 Tokyo Paralympics.
A very admirable goal for literally anyone, and
it's a very stupid goal too.
it's something which is so above and beyond what so many people either aim for or achieve in their life that
Yeah.
no matter what, it's incredible. But what I'm kind of curious about for you is this promise that you made.
Yeah.
It originated out of you being given a bow.
Okay, so basically when I was about 3 or 4 years old, somewhere along those lines, I was sitting on my granddad's lap and he was telling me all about the glorious English battles of Agincourt, Crécy and Poitiers, where a bunch of English peasants mercilessly destroyed all of these French knights. And I was just kind of like, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. And so then what he did is he made me a pine bow, so a pine longbow. And the way that he did that is the bow actually sat, my hand sat in front of the bow, and he had like this bit of Velcro that went around the bow like that. As you can probably guess, that was incredibly unco. And by the time I was about 6 years old, I broke it because I got too strong for it. And then it sort of got to the point where my folks started to see me move away from things like soccer and AFL and things like that, and I focused more on projectile sports, mainly archery, because they saw me obsessed with creating miniature battles with all of my Lord of the Rings Risk figurines and
Yes.
all of these sort of medieval things that realistically had nothing to do with other sort of sporting industries. So they decided to eventually buy me a left-handed bow, which meant that I shot like that. And it only got to the point where I started shooting a right-handed compounder, thanks to a bloke, I think his name was Bruce, who made me a aluminium apparatus. It was the first apparatus that I had.
Just explain what an apparatus might look like.
Okay, so I don't have one here. Okay, so these are apparati. So basically, they wrap around the hand like so. Bit of string.
Yep.
Wraps around the bow, and basically that's how I hold the bow. The pressure of me actually physically pushing against the bow is what actually allows me to shoot accurately with a left hand holding the bow. Alternatively, what I use for more traditional shooting, rather than this behemoth behind me, is this type of an apparatus. So basically, Velcro around there, string wraps around like so, and then Velcro goes around the bow like that. And what that means is that I can yank it as much as I possibly want.
Yeah.
It's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah. And these are very, very specialized bits of gear.
So this one in particular, this was right after I made that promise to my nana. It would have been about, I was shooting compound back then. So what a compound bow is effectively, it's the most complicated. So this would probably be the middle tier style bow. The traditional style bow is more like a stick and string. It basically is, you just pick a stick up off of a tree that you find, you put a bit of grass twing around it, and that is basically as trad as a trad bow gets. Yeah. And then when you get to one of these, this is what's called a sighted freestyle recurve, So basically that has the whole kit and caboodle on it. Imagine in a sniper movie you see the guy pull out all the things from the case and then all connect it all together.
Yeah.
That's basically where you got.
Yeah. It's an upgrade from the wood and metal hunting rifle.
Pretty much.
But what I love about even sighted recurve is that even with all the enhancements on it, it doesn't necessarily diminish skill. It just makes it easier for you to do some things.
So the way that I look at it is with traditional archery, so that could be a Japanese bow, that could be a Mongolian Asiatic style horse bow, that could be a British longbow, whatever. That pretty much is just form. There is form alone, and it's not so much of a mental game. This one here sort of forms a bit of a two-way street, so it's both a skill and a form style, a mental game, and also a sort of form-based work. Why I say form is because you actually need a set amount of strength and skeletal alignment in order to shoot accurately for a long period of time. Whereas with compound is basically the first person that makes a mistake loses.
Yeah.
Because
it's a game of perfection.
It really is. Because these guys shoot at things that are smaller than a $2 coin or a British pound at 18 meters, and they never miss. The Vegas shoot, I think they had like 12 or 13 archers that all shot perfect scores, and it was basically the first person that didn't shoot a perfect shot won the competition. So whereas with this one, basically no one shot a perfect score at it yet. There's a guy that came very, very close a few weeks back, but no one's shot a perfect score with this one yet, and that's just pure and simply because with a compound is like a sniper rifle. When you aim and shoot, you can sit there forever, and you do not need to put any effort or energy in.
Just explain explain let off.
Okay, so basically there's a pulley system that kicks in. So if anyone who's ever raised a flag or had to put raise something up using a pulley system on a rope, you know that once the pulley system engages, it's a lot easier to actually physically lift something up. That's the same way that compound bow works. There are two pulleys on either side of the limbs, and basically what happens is you have, like, let's say 60 pounds worth of force, so that's nearly 30 kilos worth of force. You draw it back, and then after about 20% of your draw, click, the pulleys engage, and you're only pulling back about 20-ish pounds worth of force. So you can comfortably just sit there forever. And then what you have is a release aid, which usually is on your pinky or your thumb. And what you do is you click, there's a little hook on the string, that lets go, and that's basically how you release the shot.
So the releasing of a compound bow, which many people might not know, is actually done by a trigger system.
It's effectively a gun with a bow and arrow. That's basically the best way that you can describe it. Does it require less skill than one of these? I would say no. But it requires a very different style of skills. A very different specific set of skills.
Yes, let's get some loosen up in here.
So, whereas with this one is pure and simply finger release. You don't actually let the string go, the string slips out of your fingers. So you'll see every archer, if you watch them in slow motion, they won't actually change anything as they release the shot. All they're doing is they're actually letting the fingers release.
They're letting the string slip through the fingers, which I think is one of the most beautiful feelings for people who have never experienced archery or shot a bow.
Absolutely.
The feeling of a perfect release, the feeling of a perfect shot.
Yeah.
There's nothing really quite like it.
No, there's not. I mean, I've jumped out of a plane before with a parachute, which is good.
Yes.
You definitely need that. And I would only equate that to the sensation of doing a perfect shot. So when I won the medals, which you actually see just above you there, the last shot that I needed to take, the difference between first, second and third, I think it was about 3 or 4 points.
Yep.
And basically what happened was I knew my last shot needed to be perfect.
Yep.
So what I did is I lined up, and I didn't actually look through the sight, as it were. I looked directly at the spot of the center of the target, and then what happened was the sight just magically appeared into the center of the target. I released the shot, and what I heard was a crack. Why did I find that so enjoyable? Because I knew I shot my own arrow.
Yeah.
I Robin Hooded my own arrow to get a gold medal. That was so cool.
And how far away was that?
That was only 18 meters, so it's not huge distance.
But you're shooting at a target. So you're shooting in the very center bullseye, which is the X ring.
Yeah, which is just this little tiny bit here.
That's a $2 coin, a $1 coin.
Yep, thereabouts. So you can see my fingernail basically. That is probably the size of the X ring. And yeah, to shoot that 3 times, that indoors again, the indoors to outdoors, there's again another different level of skills that you need, because with indoors, there's no wind, there's no other environment that can really get in the way of your shot process. So it's a pure mental game there. Whereas when you're outside, there could be a sudden gust of wind that could hit you at about 50 meters, which the Olympic distance is 70 meters. So what you've got to be prepared for is you've got to be watching the flag above the target. Then you've also got to be watching the other archers, seeing how they react. Because archers on the end of the field sometimes have an advantage, because they could actually almost sense, not so much hear or see, but sense the other archers have a bit of a hard time trying to shoot that shot. And then you could go, oh crap, okay, yep, nope, the wind can pass by, yep, we're good, and a bang, I win, sucker.
Try to describe how you get that feeling. Is it just something in your periphery, anything you hear, or is that just something that develops over experience?
I would say it's a bit of everything. So I would say it's a bit of a natural sixth sense sort of talent that you acquire. I would also say it depends on the amount of focus that you have. In terms of me, how I regard myself as a high performance athlete, there's realistically 3 major things that I always take into account. One is sleep, another is food, and another is how mentally prepared I actually am prior to the competition.
Yeah.
I don't care about physical fitness. That never really bothers me. It never really comes into the equation. Basically, if my mental strength is good enough, there's an old saying, determined mind, determined body. Basically, if I am feeling solid enough throughout the competition, then it doesn't matter how much physical strength I have. I won't fail, basically. The only thing that I kind of rely on in terms of previous training is I will have to rely on the fact that I have shot, say, 1,000 or 1,500 arrows the week beforehand, and I will trust that that practice has been enough for me to actually succeed in the competition. So by having all of that mental preparation in the background, it allows me to clear my head, and I can only focus on the shot itself, but also I'm focusing on everything else around me. Like, it could even be something as stupid as you just see a crow fly above you, and then all of a sudden it hits a gust of wind and it just goes and just flies off in the wrong direction, and you just go, okay, my arrow's going to have a hard time. I don't really want that to happen. I'm going to just let down.
Yeah.
Because what a lot of people who aren't in the archery field know is you shoot 6 arrows an end, which is basically a period.
A round.
Yes. And basically what happens is you have 4 minutes to shoot those 6 arrows. So what that means is, for a good archer who's got a good time pace, you've got somewhere between 3 to 4 stuff-ups which you can just sort of ease down and correct. However, the moment you let go of the arrow, that's it, that shot's done, it counts.
Yeah.
That's why you'll see archers, they'll be on the field, they'll be at full draw, and then they might be waiting there for a second or two, and then they'll start going like this, and then they'll just go, okay. And then they'll take a few deep breaths, wait another couple of seconds, and then go again.
So that's given me 2 ideas. One is the idea of target panic.
Yes.
So for those who have never shot a bow before, particularly shot a bow or shot a bow in a competition.
Yeah.
Could you try to explain the giant aspect which mental strength actually plays in archery? And
okay, so I'll make use of this to give you an idea. So basically, target panic is when you are so focused on getting the score, you are completely forgetting everything else that you need to do as an archer, which is a very, very big death trap that a lot of archers fall into, particularly compounders. This is why I say compounders have a lot more of a mental game rather than, say, recurvers and then trad archers. because with a trad archer, realistically your only goal is to hit the target at this sort of a distance. It's not to get a perfect shot every time. I mean, I did, but I'm a kind of special spastic case there.
I'm not denying that.
Yes. But when it comes to, say, a recurver or something, you have a tiny little peep on your sight. That basically is only about yay big. So what you're only looking through the sight is you basically are only seeing this circle with the sight. So what you're doing is you're wanting to keep it on that particular point. Now when you have target panic, you're focusing too much on keeping it on that point that you're forgetting about the rest of what you need to do. And then it's causing you to worry about whether you'll actually hit the target properly or not, and as a consequence your form starts to fall apart. The easiest way to get around that is what I do personally is I think it's what's called passive active aiming. So basically what this is basically you're staring at a point on the target. So I'll stare at this little X ring, which is just a little plus sign in the center of the target, and I will focus only on that point, and then I will allow my sight to do what it wants. It can go all the way around, like it looks crazy. It looks like it's doing a figure eight. It messes with your head. But if you let it do that, and then you trust that your form will release at the right moment when it will be in the center, then you won't have any sort of panic attack, as it were.
Yeah. The idea of where your eyes have their focus as well, that's what you're basically talking about, is not focusing on the target pin. So the target pin itself on your bow is blurry.
Yeah.
It's blurry and just going everywhere.
So yes and no. So for some archers that is the case, for me it's not. The pin will go directly in the center of the target, but the thing is the pin will get in front of my field of vision, and that's when I know I need to take the shot. Whereas some archers who experience a form of target panic, they will be focusing on the pin and trying to slot the pin onto the center of the shot, which realistically, unless you've got a machine where it's actually stabilized and it's on a platform and the earth isn't moving, it's incredibly difficult. At indoors it's not too hard, but once you're getting out to 70 meters where you've got wind blasting at you, where you've got different heat waves hitting you, where it's raining, it's almost damn impossible to keep it in the exact center all the time.
In addition to just the human body twitching and not being able to remain that steady.
Exactly. One of the easiest ways that you can actually mess with an archer's head is you can just say, geez, my nose is itchy. Because then they'll just be like going at full draw and and they'll miss completely. Yep. And I've seen it happen so many times before. Or you could just say, I really feel like my left pinky toenail is kind of digging into my body a little bit, or it's digging into my sock. And then you'll just see half a dozen archers just start going, oh wait, no, that's my right one. And then they'll, oh no, that's like this. And then they'll take off their shoes, and that's why archery is such a mentally demanding sport, because basically you've just got to have your entire mind and body focused on that soul, on the shot. And that's why it's critical that form must be perfect, because you don't want to be going, oh geez, is my elbow high enough, is this pulled back enough, is my equipment set up right. I mean, my arrows are a horrible example right now, but you also want to make sure that they're all set up properly. I mean, most of my arrows are missing a fletch right now, but that's because I've been in lockdown. I don't really care.
Yeah. I think there's a very big reason that archery has got so much attention as almost a meditation style sport, or there's a reason that over centuries you'll hear warriors or archers talk about this kind of almost trance, which you can get into once you become so attuned to the bow, to the arrows, and to your form.
You see, with that works much better with trad archers, but there's a danger to that when you're a recurve or a compound archer, because you can become too comfortable with the shot process, and there's a fine balance between not caring and actually wanting. The fine line between, you know, not giving a shit and actually really focusing on what you need to do. Because if you're really focusing on what you need to do and you're so determined, you must go in this turn, and then you overwhelm your mind, target panic, you'll miss the shot completely. Whereas if you just go, I don't care, it's all good, it's perfectly fine, and then I missed the shot. It's like, yes, there is a classic saying for archers is aim, shoot, swear, repeat. That's
okay. I'm yet to do the swearing part on the field, but yes, we shall soon see.
I would wager you've said it a couple of times under your breath at least.
Look, what happens in the head and what happens outside the mouth is two completely different things.
So when you see me in really decent competitions, like for example the Dubai World Champs or the national championships and things like that, or any competition or any qualifying event for that matter, I will be the epitome of calm. I will be having a lovely time. I will be joy and all that sort of stuff. If you see me, if you actually hit a camera somewhere at the field when I'm all on by myself, the kookaburras get scared with some of the noises that come out of my mouth. Like, it is insane.
But is that just something that calms you? Or is it just something which you found works?
Okay, I find that I panic a lot when I'm in practice, and the reason for that is because it's doing things that I've never done before, because I'm expanding on what I already know. I'm trying to improve myself, try new things. Whereas when I'm in competition, if I've done enough practice previously, there is no scare, there is no panic. There is just, I am here to do my job. I am here to shoot, I am here to shoot well, I am here to come first. Nothing else matters for this brief period of time. And then the moment that I step off the line, that all deflates for a little while. And I'll go back into having a chat about a budding snag or something else, or, you know, how nice it was for me and my lady to go out on a picnic date or some shit like that. Whereas, you know, once I'm on the line, it's just perfect murder face. That's actually what the para coach described me as.
Perfect murder face.
Perfect murder face, because when you go to take a shot, you just stare directly down, nothing else matters. Bang! Okay, I feel like tacos for dinner. Alright, now back to the shot process. And yeah.
Trying to think. So, would you almost say that during competition, even if you don't have absolutely perfect form, as long as it's consistent and as long as it's repeatable, that's okay?
Yes and no. So why I say yes is because if I can create some sort of a form process that would be consistent at the time, that would only be of one of two reasons. Either I'm unwell or I haven't had enough of the three things that I said previously. I haven't had enough food, I haven't had enough sleep, I haven't mentally prepared enough. So basically what I'm doing is I'm compensating. So that works well enough, but you won't ever be as good as what you would be if you had actually maintained a perfect form. No, because when it comes to any sort of challenge, so let's say hypothetically you had to wait for another archer to shoot another couple of arrows because you had a bounce out. A bounce out is basically where the arrow hits the target and then falls out. It's very rare.
Generally only happens when the target's been shot
to shit, or the target itself is developed improperly where it's too hard pressed in a certain specific area. And so, like, let's say hypothetically that happens, or let's say hypothetically there was cloud cover, which was really nice and calming, and then in Queensland it can get upwards to about 45 degrees, possibly even 50 on the field, on the actual range when the sun comes over. And I can tell you right now, that is draining, and your mental preparation just goes straight out the window. So what do you have left? Form.
Yeah.
If you have perfect form, you'll still manage to do all right under those conditions. But if your form is crap and you're just basically, you know, trying to maintain some form of consistency, you're gonna have a bad time. It's as simple as that. And you know, I do a variety of different exercises to make myself focus on a particular form process. So sometimes it will be focus on this shot alone. Are you prepared? Are you ready? And I will not lift up the bow until I say yes to myself. And then I do a whole Gallipoli, right, now let's see you do it. And then I go up, raise, take the shot. And also when it comes to say the last shot, because the last shot, you just go, all right, this is the last shot, don't fuck it up. You need to make sure that this last shot is perfect. It must be on point. So what I basically tell myself is, I've still got another half to go. Like I've still got another half of a competition to go after this. Because what happens is you shoot 36 arrows, and then you shoot another 36 arrows. So you have a breather between, so I basically tell myself, I've only shot 36 arrows. I've still got another 36 to go. Or, you know, if you've shot 6 arrows, but you're having trouble with a specific arrow, it happens from time to time. Archers will freak out over the 4th arrow for some dumb reason. I mean, it happens to me multiple times over.
Not even a specific arrow, just the number.
Just the fact that it is the 4th arrow, yeah. Because something will get into your head that will say, oh, you stuff up at this point in time, or maybe it's a specific end, so round. The reason for why I have trouble saying round is because a half is actually called a round in archery. Yes, we're very complicated. So basically, you'll need to go, right, this isn't actually the 4th arrow, this is actually the first set of the second set of 3 arrows. So you kind of need to...
You need to do some mental gymnastics in your own head.
Pretty much. It's basically like the old saying of like, I'm more afraid of my own mistakes than of my enemy's designs, basically. And that is a perfect example in archery. Because there was one time where I was actually so focused at a national championship, I ended up beating the guy, which was actually a really big surprise. But we were doing what's called match play, so you shoot 3 arrows a piece, and it's basically the person with the best arrows wins. So I shot 2 10s, which I was pretty happy with. My third and final shot was a 7, but it wasn't on my target.
Yeah, so...
I shot the target next to me.
That's a 2 meter gap, would you say?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. And I just got so dead focused on what I needed to do that I just completely forgot which target I was shooting at. And I shot a 7 on the wrong target. And fortunately the other guy shot 19, so I was quite happy with that. So I shot a 20 and still beat him, but I was like, okay, let's not do that again. But everything that you do is always, you're never a perfect archer. You're never perfect at your sport. You're always constantly improving. And in a sport like archery, I mean, the shirt that you see here, I have a cerebral palsy radio station that sponsors me. But that sponsorship is basically, you know, giving arrows here. They were incredibly generous to provide this frame for me. I was not expecting that. I didn't ask for that. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to treasure it for the rest of my life because it's a green and gold jersey with my name on the back.
Yeah.
And it's a very proud moment for me, and I burst into tears when they gave me this. But the simple fact of the matter is, I have to work full time in order to, you know, pay the bills, in order to do everything that I need to do. So, like, I will get up in the morning, and there will be some days where I'm just fucking exhausted, and I do not want to do anything. And you know, you've got your lovely lady lying beside you, and all you want to do is just snug because it's nice and warm, and it's
winter now.
And it's winter, yes. And you just go, I don't want to go down to that garage where I've got to spend, you know, 2 to 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, however much time you need to spend, putting arrows in the same target faces. Like the ones that I'm currently using right now is so basically, because I'm shooting at a shorter distance, to give you guys an idea, this is what the 18 meter target is, and this is basically what I'm shooting at right now.
This is the extremely homemade version.
But the thing is, it works, because what it's doing is it's simulating what the target would look like in my eyes at 70 meters, and the target face itself, which is behind all of this wonderful kit and caboodle that we've set up, it's set up at 90 meters, so it gives me an extra bit of challenge. And for me, when I see these arrows constantly going in the center all the time, it's mentally preparing me for when I have to go back into standard competitions, where I have to actually make sure that every arrow goes in the center. And that's another bit of mental preparation that I do as well. I will often shoot at the same target face. So a 70-meter target face is actually, so these are the two center rings of a 70-meter target face. So as you can see, it's about the size of a coffee saucer, thereabouts.
The gold ring is about a dinner plate, roughly.
Yep. And then this one would be like a vegetable platter sort of thing. And so basically, as you can see, it's from a short distance away, no stress at all getting it right there. At 70 meters, basically stick your thumb up in front of you like that, look at your thumbnail, that's how big a 122 centimeter face is. So this would actually be really massive. And I will actually shoot at that at 30 meters, because what that's doing is it's training my mind to go, the arrow will only go in the center all the time. So that way, when I shoot an amazing score at 70 meters, say a 56 or a 57, I won't go...
Out of 60.
Out of 60, yes. I won't go, oh my god, this is so cool, how did I do that? That's impossible. Because I've been continuously doing that at 30 meters. So I've basically been going, yeah, this is nothing normal, this is nothing out of the ordinary. I'm just sort of going, alright, let's just do it again, and let's just do it again.
And it's just maintaining that mental consistency, in a way.
Yeah, and another big thing that I think a lot of high performance athletes go through with every sport that it is. It doesn't matter whether you're doing athletics, it doesn't matter whether you're doing a team sport. It's very difficult to detach yourself from real life and then go into the sporting world sometimes. Like, for example, my grandmother, the one that I made the promise to, she nearly died a couple of weeks ago. And that's happened a few times this year. And it hits you in the guts when things like that happen. So you need to prior develop these sort of mental systems in place to ensure that when you actually go to a competition, the thoughts of, oh, that person's treating me bad at work, or my relationship isn't going well with a family member, or one of my family members is sick, yada yada yada. You basically have these tools set in place so that way you can succeed, even regardless of the sort of punishments that you go through in normal day-to-day lifestyle.
Is it almost on the bad days, it would be crap, I've got to get up in the morning on a cold morning and do 5 hours of practice when I want to just stay in bed and watch Netflix, like most of us. On the good days, does it almost become an escape from the rest of your life?
So I would say that my life is pretty good. Overall, I would say I'm very fortunate with what I have. I've been to nearly 30 to 50 different countries. Like, I've lost count now. In my life, I've experienced a stupid amount of things for a 25-year-old. And I would say that I'm very lucky with what I have. I've still got all my family members and everything. But if I was to say what I would call it would be a piece of joy in my life, because one of the big things, I actually talk about my archery a lot at work, because I work for charities, and most of them are environmental charities. So I'll basically be talking about I've got like these little blue striped wrens, which basically look like willy wagtails, which are basically tiny little birds. They'll dance through my feet while I'm practicing, because there'll be a male and there'll be his harem of about 20 odd females that'll literally just be chasing him all around my feet all the time. And then I'll have a kookaburra that'll sit on the 40-meter post and he'll giggle at me every time I miss the target. And then you'll have white and black cockatoos, and the black ones will sound absolutely gorgeous, because they'll make that really lovely song that they make, and the white ones will sound like they're having a full-blown domestic in the background. It's fantastic. It's all of these sort of things that I have in the environment of our home range of Sanford Valley that I really, really appreciate. And yeah, that itself is it's a very big escape for me, especially when you're shooting on a good day where it's like 20 degrees, you don't have any wind, the cloud cover is perfect, the grass is all green and luscious, so that when you sit down it just feels perfect. it reminds you of why you spent, 5 to 6 years living off of chicken and milk in the hopes that maybe you might actually get the chance to see a golden biscuit at the end of a competition.
Now, that the idea of an athlete's life outside of sport is not something which gets covered very much. So,
well, what a lot of people don't realize about most athletes is, I would say, I'm just going to take a ballpark figure here, I would say 80 to 90% of all athletes aren't the well-off, amazingly paid athletes that get paid to train and get paid to do this particular sport. Archery in particular suffers a lot in this regard because they haven't really discovered how to make it a proper spectator sport. Whereas, say for example, AFL, another sport that I seriously considered doing a lot earlier in life, it's very much if a person gets tackled or something, the whole crowd just goes and everyone gets into it. It's almost a blood sport. It's like, get it, do it.
Especially like rugby or American football, where
you actually physically hear the as they actually clash into each
clash and hit, and then fights break out every now and again.
And they're like, do it,
it's proper gladiator stuff.
Yeah, it's just like that kid gif of in the ice hockey ring. You're just going, whereas in archery, the crowd is actually asked to be quiet once they start shooting because the distractions that are available is just too numerous to count. That's why they ask you to be quiet. I mean, I personally wouldn't rather that. I personally would rather that there are people that are screaming their guts out the whole time, because people like me would eat that up. We would love it. We would get so revved up about that sort of thing. And then there would be other archers that would just be like, oh, can you just shut up? So
certainly, for my time competing in gymnastics, there was always a rule that before someone would start their routine, everyone would go nuts, everyone in the crowd.
As
soon as they start, everyone shuts up. If you had anyone unnecessarily talking or shouting during someone's routine, unless it was for a skill which they're afraid of, which they nailed, or they did something really well, everyone shuts up because distractions are too numerous, and if you distract the gymnast mid-routine, there's a real chance they could injure themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And to an extent, archery has that issue as well, but not nearly as badly as what gymnastics has. But if there's one thing that I always love about archery, is that there's no subjectivity when it comes to the actual end result of the competition. Either you hit the center of the target or you don't. You succeed or you fail. It's very engineering in that sort of regard. It's very mathematical. It's black and white. You win, you lose. There is no sort of judges appeal or anything like that. I mean, they do have certain aspects of an appeal. Like, for example, with archery, if your arrow even touches one of the lines, it actually counts as another point. As the extra point.
It counts as the inside point. So if it hits the gold and red black line, it counts as a gold.
So this is the 9 ring, this is the 8 ring, so if it were to hit the line, that would be a 9 rather than an 8. So there will be times in world championships where a guy will shoot here and the judge won't actually call out a 10 or a 9, he'll call out 10-9 liner, possibly a whatever he believes it will be. But then the judges will then use magnifying glasses, believe it or not. They use like those little monocle things. It's kind of geeky and dorky at the same time, but it's also cool. And they'll actually physically look up and down on the target just to confirm whether the shot was in or out. Because in most circumstances, a win or a loss on a Olympic or Paralympic stage is usually 1 to 2 points. It's a very, very fine line, and
this can be over how many arrows?
So basically, as I mentioned before, there's 2 sets of competitions. There's the guts of the competition, which is 2 sets of 36 arrows, so 72. With a Paralympic competition, so there's about 40 odd archers that will shoot in a Paralympic contest. It will be somewhere around the 80 to 100 point margin in terms of the worst archer and the best. The top few archers will probably only be about, I would say, 10 points apart, the top 5 to 10 archers, depending on the skill level or the wind issue or any other temperature or rain issues. When it comes to match plays, so that's 3 arrows apiece, 1 point.
Yeah.
Every time. They're 1 to 2 points without fail. The moment that somebody else shoots that's actually a crucial point that I was just going to get to, is that the moment that somebody shoots a really bad shot, it's very important that you have that mental strength. Because if they shoot a bad shot, you then know that you've got an easy gap. You've got an easy win. All you need to do is just do the same thing that you did last time. And then you basically got to not get into the phase of, you can't mess this up, you can't mess this up, you can't mess this up. How did you mess that up?
And is that almost in a way harder than knowing you have to shoot, knowing you're behind, but you've got to shoot the 10?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's much harder shooting second than it is shooting first when it comes to a match play series, because basically your mind instantly calculates, because you've done this for years, so your mind instantly goes, right, that's the amount of points that he's got, I need these arrow scores in order to win. Not just the first arrow, but I also need this second arrow as well in order to either be level or win. So it's very important that you don't get into that sort of state of mind, because the moment that you do is the moment that things like, for example, target panics start to take place, where you just go, no, I need to do it, I need to do it, ah, shit! That's basically like where your sort of mind sort of goes. And the key way to sort of get around that more than anything else is to basically only focus on where your scores and your arrows are going, because in the major competitions, once you reach the higher tiers, so once you're no longer in the minor finals, once you're in the semis, or once you're in the quarters or the semis, or even the finals, you'll actually have your own target, and they'll have their own target. The judge will scream out the score, and you might have other archers and spectators in the background, like when they go, he shot a 10, everyone just go, yeah! And then you'll just go, and then you'll have to focus on what you need to do.
And there's no way to block that out.
It is if you're in the right headspace. Or you could celebrate it with them. You could be happy for them. You could appreciate the fact that they've got the 10. Like there was last year when I shot in the national championships, I shot up against one of a bloke that I seriously admire. His name's Merrick Steiner. I was the favourite to win, and basically he managed to get me to the point where he only needed to shoot one more set of 3 in order to win, and I still needed to shoot another 3 or 4 victories even just to get up to a tie. But because I was so happy for him and sort of proud of who he is and his achievements and everything, I considered it more like a friendly sort of bout, and I wasn't really concerned that I was in the lead, in the what's the name. And then it got to the point where we actually had a 1 arrow shoot off, because we actually tied for scores, to the point that they just went, nah, that's it, we're shooting 1 arrow shoot off. And I stuffed up on the last shot, which was sad, but
and what was that one due to, do you think?
Basically, I ran out of time. I let down once, and then I kind of hesitated in committing to the shot. So what that means is you're at full draw, and you realistically only need to do one tiny little twitch, and then that's what it'll do to get the arrow through the measuring stick called the clicker. So the clicker will go off, the arrow will fly forward. So I basically couldn't get the arrow through, and the distance between our 2 arrows was about this much at 70 meters.
Yeah.
So I was just sort of like, and the fact of the matter is that and this is the beauty of match play, is that you could be 30 points behind in the ranking rounds, because that was the case. I was actually, I think Merrick was 505 or something like that, because it was a very windy day that day, and I think I was 540 or something like that in the rankings. And the first few comps I blasted through, I went up against my mentor and I beat him, which was a very big surprise. I had to shoot a 10 to win, and I did, which was amazing. And then my competition against Merrick was just, yeah, like, I mean, I was doing so well right up until that final moment, and then I just stuffed up. But
would you actually call it a stuff up though? Because the distance
True.
of
It
a
wasn't
centimeter at 70 meters.
Well, yeah, and I guess that's the thing. It's like when I think it was the Rio Games. I saw a journalist said something along the lines of, it was a Yankee boy or a Czech guy or something. They failed because they got a silver medal. They got a silver medal at the fucking Olympics. Like,
yeah,
I don't care who you are. That's better than a PhD as far as I'm concerned, because the amount of effort and energy, and like with high performance efforts, you have a succeed or fail sort of time frame, and you have like 10 times where you could stuff up on the day, and that's it. That's your 4 years, well, in my case 5 to 6 years of training wasted. It's done. There is no appeal, there is no, and that's to get your qualifying scores, that's to earn a spot for your country, that's to then keep your spot for your country, and that's to then compete in the games. And also there's another big thing that archers are very, athletes in general are very, very wary of, is doping and cheating through some sort of a drug or something. And a lot of people go, oh, well, if you take steroids, then of course you shouldn't be allowed to go in. Or if you're an archer, for example, you take beta blockers, which are a calming agent, then you should definitely not be allowed. But what a lot of people don't realize is that in pretty much every, muscle enhancing mixture, the shakes and things like that, they all have ingredients that you're not aware of. And if one of those ingredients is in your body when you get tested, you're done for years. And that can kill an entire archer's career in one go.
It can kill any athlete's career.
Yeah.
As soon as you put the label of doper or cheater,
yeah,
you are going to have a rough time coming back in that sport or
your
period.
Sponsors will no longer trust you. Your even your family may actually have a little bit of a, and all that could have been done is because you had a hot a chocolate thick shake 3 months ago that you thought tasted nice, and it doesn't have some like really, really bad thing. Like, for example, it's not like you were inhaling acid or something like that. It could just be a simple ingredient that is somewhat related to another drug, and that's how tight that sort of anti-doping style is. So basically, with most athletes, particularly Australian athletes, because I've had a word with quite a few all-stars. My personal favourite is Duncan Armstrong, who I spoke to last year. He won the gold medal as a swimmer several times over, I believe. And we all have the same thought process of, if it's nature made, just focus on that. Don't eat it if it's man made, because it's not worth it. If you're not absolutely certain what's inside the food that you're eating, the supplement that you're drinking, don't have it. It's as simple as that.
So is that therefore a sign of too much regulation, or just something which athletes have had to adapt to because of what's been put in place?
I would say it's basically athletes having to adapt more than anything else, and I personally respect it. I believe that it's a great thing. Since I've become an archer, a high performance athlete, my life as a whole has improved in terms of how clean my body has been in the last, 5 to so years. Because I'm not going to go out on a valley spree, and take a lot of hallucinogenics because it's something that's a fun idea.
When your body is your life when you're an athlete.
Pretty much, yeah. And that's another thing. I will do rigorous exercises continuously. So when I go to work these days, I actually run to work. It's about a 2-kilometer spiel, and I will just sprint to and from work because it allows me to get in a bit of physical exercise. Alongside that, I've got a boxing bag here. I've got some weights. I've got some other tools that I use to do sit-ups, push-ups, all that sort of thing, to basically give myself the body of a I would say like an athlete, basically. So that way, again, it all comes back to that mental side of things of, I am that physically fit, my lungs are that capable, my body is that capable. I don't need to think about that. All I need to focus on is getting the arrow right in the center of the target.
Having all those steps built up such that you don't have to worry about them.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people, they wouldn't realize the kind of muscle fatigue which can go on for shooting an archery competition.
Absolutely. And so what I actually have is tennis balls. So basically what I will do with these is I will press them against a wall, and then I'll just smash my body up against it and attack every little part of my body that is in any way, shape or form not feeling right. So most parts I can attack with my finger, and then anything below that area I will just attack with a tennis ball. And muscle fatigue, not only in a competition but over time, really does affect an archer or an athlete in general, because I will have very specific points which I will be incredibly aware of, and if I feel any tension in certain areas, I stop and I just completely go away, and I won't shoot again for that day. If I feel that sort of, and I don't mean tension as in sort of, I'm feeling fatigued because you've done like 50 kettlebell crunches or something like that. It's more a case of it feels like a thread is about to snap. That's the sort of sensation that you get.
Yeah.
And it's not a oh, I'm tired sort of thing. It's a, ow, that is very painful right there sort of sensation.
And knowing when to stop is an incredibly important thing for every athlete of every sport, because the mindset of, no, I just got to keep going, I just got to keep hammering, it'll get you injured.
It will, and I've done that not only in archery, I've done that in a few other sports as well. I've done semi-long distance runs of 5 to 10 kilometers where I've just gone, no, I'm fine, I'll keep going, and it honestly, sometimes my calf muscles felt like they just shriveled up and died halfway through. Actually, my favorite time is, I'm not sure if the scars are still there, or you can still see like a little bit of a mark there. That's of about 7 years ago. I was running along a footpath. It had rained the day beforehand. I think I was going at something close to about 25-ish kilometers an hour, so I was absolutely flying, and I hit a corner and just slipped, bang, right onto a concrete slab. I basically ripped open my entire knee, and I was only about, I'd say, a kilometer done. I still had another 7 kilometers to go. Did I walk back the other way? No, I kept running. Yep. That was a very bad mistake.
It's one of the most interesting things that I experienced personally and saw when I was doing gymnastics, because it was the motto of keep going. Yeah. It was, at least in that case, it was out of fear most times, because fear of looking weak or being separated from the group, having to do something else. So you just keep going, even though you do a tumble pass, let's say, and then in my case I would limp back most of the time to the start, wait 30 seconds, and then the knee had felt okay enough to go again, but then you'd limp back a bit worse. But you just, it's hard to describe sometimes, because every part of your brain should be thinking, I should stop, I've torn open my knee.
Yes,
I
it
should
has.
stop.
Yes.
Like pain, stop now. But it's there's just something that keeps you going.
Well, as a high performance athlete in any sport that you go into, you will reach a point of endurance where you feel like you can't keep going anymore. And I would say that's not just a single competition or a single day that you're doing it. It's a sort of diluting mental fatigue. It almost feels like you're drunk, in terms of if you've been training relentlessly for months on end, and even just doing half of what you were doing when you started feels like an absolute chore, and it happens over and over and over again. It's a very difficult thing to get out of, and also knowing when to stop is critical. But also there's a thing that the bloke who helped make this, he worked, by the way, his name's Perry Jackson, heart of gold, this bloke. He actually spent, I think, 6 to 9 months working on this with me. Didn't charge me anything for it. We must have spent hundreds of hours enhancing and developing this. And the biggest thing that he ever taught me, and I will always remember it, is don't mistake your brains for your balls. So what this basically means is don't feel like you have to do more than what you are actually physically capable of, or train intelligently, not hard, if that makes sense. So at the moment I'm actually using a set of 24-pound limbs, so that's roughly only about 10 to 12 kilos thereabouts of pressure that I'm pulling back. For any standard athlete and archer, that's nothing. That's easy. I mean, even beginners will shoot with these. It will be a challenge for a beginner to start off with, but it won't be horribly difficult.
It won't be horrible. There would be people, first-time archers, who would be able to pull that with some difficulty, but they'd get it done.
It wouldn't hurt them, let's just put it that way. But why I'm using them is because it allows me to change my form to a much more perfect state, but at the same time I can comfortably shoot 200 to 300 arrows and not be afraid of injuring myself. Now, why this is important is because once I actually go back to shooting my 42 pounds, which is about 20 to 21 kilos thereabouts of force, which that could hurt you if you're not doing it right, my mental game will go, hold on, I have shot hundreds of arrows a day, every day. My muscles are in tune. They are ready to shoot these shots. Let's just get this done. Whereas if I had just shot the 42 pounds and I was only shooting, say, 50 to 100 arrows each day, it wouldn't have the same effect. And it wouldn't have the same ease that I would feel as well. But also I wouldn't be able to make the form changes that I was going to make as well. And I would be more likely having to constantly focus on making sure that this part of my shoulder doesn't damage itself, because I can tell you right now, you get an injury, you're screwed. You're basically stuck for about 3 to 6 months minimum in terms of repairing it, and sometimes it may never get repaired. The bloke who made that apparatus for me, Perry Jackson, he's a classic example of this. He used to shoot war bows all the time when he was younger, and basically his body just couldn't keep up with him, and now he can barely shoot a bow at all.
Yeah.
Even something as light as a 10-pound bow.
We were talking about shooting war bows a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Just go on what you were talking about then.
So basically, you run the risk of shooting heavier than what your body can take. Even with all the rigorous training that you do with shooting heavy pounded bows, you run the risk of tearing out pieces of your shoulder, your vertebrae, everything. So it is, especially when you're doing this sort of level of sport, when you're doing, say, when you just want to shoot a really powerful bow and just go, manhood, you're not really worried about hitting a target precisely or anything, that's fine.
Yeah.
Go ahead and do that.
And
socks off.
And the kinds of bows we're talking about are 120 pounds plus.
Yeah.
Like they are beyond anything that's reasonable to shoot for sport.
Basically, that's my weight that you're drawing back. I'm about 75 kilos. You're pulling back 75 kilos worth of force, which is insane.
Yeah.
It is just ridiculously relentless. I mean, I have managed to pull back a 110, 120 pound war bow I would say 4/5 of the way back before I released the shot. And you can understand why these things punch through armor. It's like feeling you letting go of a tree log and just watching it slam into a wall and blast it apart. It's just like, you kind of feel like the Emperor, where you're just going, unlimited power! So it's very addictive, but at the same time, when you're doing stuff like this, you're wasting your time pulling back something that heavy.
Because even the top level recurve athletes, the highest number I've heard is 50 pounds.
55 is probably the best that most archers will go with. I know of one recurver that shoots a 60-pound bow, but that's because the dude is 6'5" and he's got a draw length that's about twice as long as mine. So basically he's got the body that's designed to be able to pull back something that heavy.
Consistently for shot after shot. We're not talking for 10 arrows.
No, we're talking hundreds of arrows. So the qualification period that I was going to enter into, between myself and Marek Steiner, he was the only other bloke that actually got the qualifying scores. We were going to be shooting, I think over the course of 5 days, it would have been 4 ranking rounds and 30 to 40 sets of match play. So you're looking at nearly 1,000 to 1,500 arrows in 4 to 5 days. So to put that in perspective for you, that's basically going on a rowing machine with one hand and using 3 fingers and basically pulling back 25 kilos
back and forth
1,500 times.
And let's not forget that, particularly in the recurve division, the bow itself isn't it's not light.
No, this one's probably about, this one itself is quite light. This one's only about 5 to 6 kilos, but there will be other archers that will shoot something like 15 kilo bows because they'll have ginormous weights on the end of them. These little sticks that you see here, these are called stabilizing rods. They're designed to keep your bow even while you're actually shooting, so that way it doesn't go left to right or up or down. But there will be some archers that will have these colossal weights that will honestly look like a dumbbell on the end of the bow. So you've got to maintain that fitness as well. And then here's the onion. You need to make sure that the rest of your body is also as muscularly fit as the rest of your archery muscles is. Because if you're only shooting, if all you're doing is shoot, you'll develop a serious, decent amount of core back strength. It will look phenomenal. Like, I am talking better than Arnold Schwarzenegger style. Some of the girls that I've seen who have like proper full-blown archery muscles on their back, they look relentlessly tough. You pan down and you go further on to the bottom of their back, flabby bits all over. And the same thing here. Massive pectoral muscles, nothing down here, unless you focus on maintaining all those muscles as well, because if you don't, you run the risk of doing serious injury later on in life.
And that's just due to overdevelopment of those muscles, leading to some other pulling some part of your body too much, or just...
And also the extra weight that your muscles have on the top part of your body, as opposed to nothing down here. And if you were to say live an unhealthy lifestyle of, you know, drinking beer all the time, and you had a pot belly and a big pectoral muscles at the same time, you run the risk of all sorts of different injuries because your body's confused. Are we being a high performance athlete, or are we just sitting at the pub on every Friday? What's going on here? So
just one more thing before we wrap up here.
Sure.
The idea of what athletes miss out on as a consequence of having to keep their body in such a perfect state, like missing out on those Friday nights at the pub.
That is actually by far the biggest sacrifice that I've had to make in my life, and I come bloody close to regretting what I do. I will be very honest here. I come incredibly close to, you know, going, why the hell am I doing this? What's the point? Because, you know, I've lost 4 relationships since I've been on this path. One person, we were even considering getting married at one point. I've gone out of massive friendship circles that I see as beautiful, beautiful people. I mean, I'm fortunate enough now to have a wonderful partner that loves and respects me, and we've been together for nearly a year or so now. And, you know, I've got friends that I can maintain contact with, but at the end of the day, you're putting in a very, very large amount of your life into this because the other guy is doing the same thing, and you know that. So, like, if I were to break it down, I would say that, let's say 30% of your life is sleep, then you've got another 50% of your life is work-based, that sort of thing.
Just trying to keep the lights on, pay the bills.
Yep. So that's already 80% that you've gone. Well, actually, no. In my case, I would say it's about 55 to 60%. So, no, sorry. Let's go 40% thereabouts. So 70% thereabouts gone, and then I would say another 30% of my life, somewhere between 25 to 30% of my life, is dedicated to being a high performance athlete. So realistically, you've got 5% if you're lucky. Like, I mean, last night I was blessed to actually have a night out with friends, but I do that once every 3 months thereabouts. And that's not because of COVID or anything like that. That's because life as a high performance athlete is an incredibly, incredibly demanding role, and you're not living off of a absolute massive wealth of fortune that you can just rely on. It's the only thing that's keeping you going is your mental effort. Like, I mean, I've got a village of support behind me. I've got coaches, I've got family, I've got friends, I've got sponsor people, I've got all these sort of things that keep me going. But at the end of the day, it's the power behind your mind and your own drive that keeps you moving forward. And if you aren't willing to put in that effort every day for years on end, then it's not the life for you. It's as simple as that. And that's basically one of the things that I've had to discover. And also, if you're not wanting to give up every now and then you're not doing it right. I guess the final point that I'll make here in this regard is my favourite athlete of all time. His name's Kurt Fearnley. He's a wheelchair racer of Australia. He retired after the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games with a gold medal. He announced his retirement before the race, and he still got the bloody gold. And I remember many years ago, before I actually was a high performance athlete myself, I remember the statement that he said to guys when he was on The Biggest Loser, which is basically a weight loss show. And he basically said to all of them, he said, it's okay to want to give up so long as you don't. And that has been a driving statement for my entire archery life. It's just been, I want to give up. Good. It's good that you want to feel like you want to give up.
That means you're doing it right.
Yep, but don't. Because at the end of the day, if I look back at myself in my 40s and I see that, and I get a bloody tattoo with the Olympic rings on this forearm, I'll know that I will have no regrets. Well, even so, I still have no regrets. I feel like I may have regrets, but I have no regrets in this sort of a lifestyle. It's the athlete's life for me.
Taymon, thank you very much for sharing your time with me today.
You're most welcome, mate.
Thank you.
So yeah.
That's the shit I like. No. Thank you. Thank you. Please. Yes, we got